Welcome back. We're talking about the fallout from the release of the U.S. report on CIA interrogation tactics after 9/11. Joining us here in Washington is the former chairman of the U.S. Congressional Committee on Intelligence, Pete Hoekstra. With us from London is analyst and commentator Sukant Chandan, and also joining us here in Washington, former CIA analyst Ray McGovern. Sukant, let's go to you in London, and I want you to listen to what the Republican Senator John McCain said about the release of the report.
Will the report's release cause outrage that leads to violence in some parts of the Muslim world? Yes, I suppose that's possible, perhaps likely. Sadly, violence needs little incentive in some quarters of the world today. But that doesn't mean we will be telling the world something it will be shocked to learn. The entire world already knows that we waterboarded prisoners.
So, Sukant, is this report and its contents going to generate a lot more anger against the United States that'll lead to perhaps more attacks on Americans and American interests?
I don't think so, and it's interesting McCain, of all people, would say the things that he did, considering he's a very best friend of the death squads in Syria. He's always hanging out with them and advocating for them, etc. So, like I said, again, if the torture methods were not to get viable information, what was it used for? How can it be that the United States, along with its primary allies in the region and the Pakistani military, etc., it did not know about the modus operandi and the details of organization of the very people that they've allied with for very many decades, openly since teaming up with the misnamed Mujahideen in Afghanistan against the PDPA government there and Soviet influence? No, be it in Kosovo, Chechnya, Afghanistan, Kashmir, and Pakistan, Bosnia, and elsewhere, the West have been in direct alliance with these organizations. So they didn't need these torture methods to get that information. What these torture methods were used for was to reorient these death squads away from 9/11 and the 7/7 type attacks and the Madrid attacks to focus back on the global south itself, and that's exactly what's happened. Christopher Stevens, who was lynched by the same death squads, was most probably running a torture dungeon himself in Libya before he was lynched and killed by the same death squads he was working with. And just to
yeah,
sure,
Congressman, I'm going to get your response to that, and also to what Ray McGovern said, that torture doesn't work.
Well, you've got 3 directors of the CIA. You've got John Brennan, who came out today and probably gave one of the better answers in terms of how you understand this, in saying, clearly we got information from individuals who...
But they are going to say that, aren't they?
What's that?
They are going to say that. They're not going to dispute
Well,
that.
they believed it, all right? And to say that, you know, well, hey, we just wanted to torture to get the right answer so that we could justify going into Iraq. I'm sorry, the decisions about going into Iraq and the analysis was much more about the information and the data that ever came from enhanced interrogation techniques. That was a much broader, a much more in-depth analysis than what was outlined by Ray. But you've got a number of people, professionals within the CIA, who believe that this would work, who believe that we got information that ultimately helped put together the picture that enabled us to be more successful against these radical jihadist groups than what we would have been if we had not done it, but also admitting that, you know, these folks shared information, but we don't know if it was a direct result of enhanced interrogation techniques or other processes and other things that we did throughout the interrogation phase.
Ray McGovern, there is one other scenario that we're hearing about, and we hear this from the intelligence community. They say, look, in many instances, people had to be waterboarded, people were tortured because they had information that was essential in terms of time, that was time sensitive, where an impending bombing was going to be carried out, or some kind of attack was going to be carried out. So we had to get this information really quickly.
Well, let me give you the best example of that. A fellow named Abu Zubaydah, captured in Pakistan, interrogated by the FBI, spilled the beans on the 12th of April, 2002. The CIA took over the interrogation of Abu Zubaydah, and they kept him in solitary confinement from the middle of June until the 4th of August. Now, I ask you, if there was an urgent need for information from Abu Zubaydah, why would they keep him in solitary confinement without questioning him until they got the proper authorities from the Justice Department on the 4th of August? So that's a red herring. The urgency had nothing to do with it. They wanted to apply these techniques in a way that they had not really realized would be helpful. Now, we now know that they were not helpful. And when Dianne Feinstein heard this new explanation, you know, we can't know, it's not knowable. Well, she immediately tweeted and she says, yeah, we know, we got the information before they were tortured, okay? And we also know torture doesn't work.
Sukant, the United Nations and also some human rights organizations are calling for the prosecution of U.S. officials involved in this. But, you know, the administration has made it clear, the Justice Department has made it clear that they are not going to pursue the individuals that were involved. They're not going to bring charges against them. Could charges be brought against them outside of the United States?
Well, it looks very unlikely. Although the multipolar world is developing, power is still in a unipolar posited in London, Washington, and Paris. And as long as that's the case, as long as generally military conventional power is still posited with the West, the global South hasn't yet achieved the development of capacity to really advocate for justice for itself. And it's only going to happen when we reach that place. So places like The Hague and the International Criminal Court are renamed by Africans the African Criminal Court because it's always discriminated against the victims of Western foreign policy rather than the greatest purveyors of violence on the planet, which still remain in the regimes of London, Paris, and Washington.
Congressman, we've heard a lot of public relations, of course, coming out in the wake of this report. We've heard people say it's made the United States stronger, it's made the CIA stronger for that matter. But in reality, has it hurt the way the CIA operates and their future operations?
Well, I think it will make the effectiveness of foreign policy and the effectiveness of our intelligence, it will compromise them. You heard, excuse me, the Prime Minister of Poland saying, you know, for a period of time, we cooperated with the United States. And we did that with the expectation that this was a secret agreement between the United States and Poland. And in the future, will countries partner with the United States, built on top of what happened with the WikiLeaks and those types of things. America's not very good at keeping secrets.
Well,
and so
the Polish leader has already expressed those reservations.
What's that?
The Polish leader expressed those reservations.
That's right. So I know it will make our job of gathering intelligence and cooperating and coordinating foreign policy, it will make it more difficult for the folks in the CIA who took a different position than Ray, who believed that the jobs that they were being asked to do were fully legal, were fully essential, and that they were being supported by the executive branch, the judicial branch, and by the legislative branch.
Right.
Now being thrown under the bus and saying, perhaps, you know, maybe you're going to be prosecuted for that. It's going to make them a whole lot more gun-shy as they move forward in the future.
Ray, I'm going to give you a chance to respond, but I want you to take a listen first to what Dick Cheney had to say about this.
Gosh.
What happened here was that we asked the agency to go take steps and put in place programs that were designed to catch the bastards who killed 3,000 of us on 9/11 and to make sure it didn't happen again, and that's exactly what they did. I think that what needed to be done was done. I think we were perfectly justified in doing it, and I'd do it again in a minute.
He'd do it again in a minute.
Well, he is, you know, the éminence grise. He was the power behind the throne, and he was responsible for ordering all this. Now, he talked about the dark side, right? And waterboarding he described as a dunk in water. He was running this thing and telling George Tenet, the head of the CIA, what to do. I don't know if he checked with you, Congressman Hoekstra. He really should have, but I'm amazed that you were either unaware of these things or whether you condone them.
I think I've been very open.
So you condone them? My God.
Like I explained this to you. Members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, leadership on both sides, Gang of Eight,
torture was okay?
thought that the enhanced interrogation techniques were appropriate.
Let's not use these sobriquets.
No, the Justice Department did not characterize these as legal.
Alberto
They
Gonzalez.
characterized them as legal. But, you know, to say that you're aghast that we heard, no.
I'm aghast that you were briefed on it. I thought,
No,
you're supposed to be overseeing these things. You should stop these things.
That's why we were briefed on these things.
You were co-opted. That's what you were.
No, we were not.
Yes,
Republicans and Democrats were fully briefed on these programs, and we agreed with them, and we had the opportunity.
You were lied to, and you're ashamed to admit that you were lied to.
I'm not ashamed that I was lied to. I'm admitting that these programs were briefed to us. I've talked with my staff and going back and said, you know, after this revelation came out, it's kind of like, how much of this program, how much of what is in this Dianne Feinstein report, this partisan report, Democrat report, how much did we know? 90 to 95%.
Oh my God, what a terrible admission. Aren't you ashamed?
No, I'm not ashamed.
My God.
I reached a different conclusion.
You were chair of the Intelligence Committee in the House, and you condoned that.
Your colleagues
These are not my colleagues. These are thugs.
These are people you walked away from.
They're thugs.
These are heroes for America.
Gentlemen,
they're thugs headed by Dick Cheney.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to hold it right there. Thanks so much for joining.